Let's roll back the years to the 90s and TaylorMade with their burner lineup, the bubble shaft. We all remember that. Fond memories from myself being a youngster playing what at the time was those Revolution golf clubs that TaylorMade produced, that copper orange look. We've got this coming back, introducing the TaylorMade Burner Mini Driver, retro burner, modern technology. Let's take a look. Okay, so I think we clearly need to kick things off with this head cover. Proper retro barrel head cover, small sock, leather look. So we've got the traditional TaylorMade logo that we saw in the 90s with that T logo in. And then taking that off and taking a look at the driver. So mini drivers, we've seen these before, haven't we? Smaller head than a driver, shorter in the shaft, little bit more loft, helping to maybe get control, accuracy, maybe a chance for you to hit more fairway. So typically if you're a golfer that struggles a little bit more off the tee, potentially this is a golf club to have a little look at to hit more of that short stuff. So let's quickly just run over, there's a bit of tech involved in this, but let's quickly run over the actual spec of this club and what is a mini driver. So we've got a 304cc size head. So put that in comparison, the driver's a 460, so obviously a lot smaller in the head, but bigger than a traditional 3-wood, which is typically around 185cc. And then tie that into a shorter shaft length. So this is coming in at 43.75 in inches. So again, put this into context, a driver is typically 45 3/4 for TaylorMade. 3-wood is 43.25. So it's ½ inch longer than a 3-wood, but considerably shorter than a driver. So ultimately that's going to give us a little bit of potential of control, accuracy of strike, and obviously, hopefully, a little bit more straighter tee shots. And we see that as we put that down into that playing position, but it looks like control. That's the feel you get straight away with this club, is an element of that control. Oh, that's a fantastic opening shot. That sounded incredible. The sound was excellent there. So decent tee shot. I'm just looking through the numbers here on that first shot. So you can see that's got out to 286, 264 carry, 2.5 spin. Now this is a 13-degree loft that I've got in this driver. We see movable weight in the bottom of the club, so we can switch this around. We can a bit more versatility in this in comparison to the last mini driver that we saw. So let's flip this head over. We've got two movable weights on the bottom, quite clearly labeled heavy and light. So the light being 1.5 gram and the heavy one being 13 grams. So big difference between the two. I've currently got this one in the heavy position at the back, which is a standard sort of setting. So obviously we know that creates a little bit more higher MOI, maybe a little bit more higher spin, higher launch, little bit more forgiveness. But a great look down by that golf ball. Black gloss top. It is carbon on the top only. We don't see carbon underneath. Okay, so not as much carbon as we would see in the Stealth 2 drivers. Does look good down by that golf ball. Again, fantastic. I really like the sound of that. It's not quite as muted as the Stealth 2 driver. Little bit more of a crack to it, which sounds positive. It sounds like it's really firing off there. But again, it's not a tinny sound. So clearly less carbon in there than we see with the Stealth 2. Probably that's where that sound comes from. Now, for me personally, the little bit of a negative to this is I sit it down, it just sits a little bit toed in. But obviously I've got some adjustability through that neck sleeve that we see with TaylorMade. We can move that loft up and down by up to 2 degrees. So I can change that through that neck sleeve. I can de-loft that, which will open that face and probably sit it, for me, sitting back a little bit more in a more neutral sort of position. Just later on this video, we'll have a little play around with the weight and move that heavy weight forward and see what that potentially does to the numbers and the ball flight. That wasn't the perfect of strikes there actually, but I'll tell you what, that's flown very well. Again, the sound is superb. Smash at 147 there, 260, 281. That wasn't the perfect connections there. So maybe that heavy weight at the back just helping me out a little bit, that forgiveness. So we see that carbon in the top, as we mentioned. We've got speed pocket. We've seen that in other drivers there. So they'll helping on those low face connections. We've got this K sole now, which is an interesting one. So TaylorMade is saying this is really helping to interact with the turf. So potentially this could be a 3-wood replacement off the fairway. Now, what I would say here is this is going to be harder to hit than a 3-wood because of the size of the head, the depth of the head. Obviously we've got less loft, 13.5, but there is an 11.5 degree option as well. But even at 13.5, you're going to need to be having some speed in there and a real good strike at the bottom to get this to work. But it's helping with this K-sole, less turf interaction, less surface resistance, basically helping you to pluck that ball off the ground. So with that said, let's hit some off the ground. So straight away there, this looks tougher because you see that depth of club as we've just sort of mentioned here. Ooh, and straight away that's a low in the face. I've squirted off of the right hand side there. That wasn't the best strikes to kick things off straight away there. This is a little bit harder for me. Again, that wasn't perfect. It's a better shot. I've just slightly caught the ground before that. A little bit of a drop kick on there. Not sure I'd get as much success off grass with that as I've done off the mat. Again, the flight's really nice there. A little bit low in the toe, maybe a little bit that twist face just potentially helping me on that shot. You can probably see straight away that that's a little bit tougher. Even, you know, I've got some speed, so I've got a luxury of some speed, which is going to help me. If you're a lot slow in your swing speed, could be a tough one to hit. Very consistent off the ground. If you've got the 11.5 option, that's going to be really hard. So I think if you're going to choose 11.5, it's probably definitely a driver replacement option off the tee. If you're going to go into that 13.5, potentially you've got an option to hit it off the deck as well. Now switching back onto the tee now, and I've moved that heavy weight from the back right the way forward. So 13 gram weight now more forward in the head. So we know that typically creates a little bit more of a faster ball speed. It creates a little bit of a lower launch, slightly lower spin. But we know then it has a sacrifice of maybe not quite being as stable on those slight miss hits. We'll find out. I'm keeping the loft the same at 13.5, but obviously just that heavier weight is now more forward. Oh, that's a little bit low on the club face there. That still might just spin up a little bit there just because of my strike more than anything. Yeah, it has a little bit there. At the end of this day, we know strike is a very important factor when it comes into these clubs, and that was a little bit low, which will always just tend to pop that spin up a tiny bit. It's a better strike. Just tweak that up the left a little bit more of a stronger flight. So I'm not really seeing any much difference really on that launch, not only through the strike and also that spin a little bit. It looks to be very, very sort of similar numbers. Okay, so I've just now switched it over a little bit more. Heavyweight still in that forward position. Now I've dropped the loft by 2 degrees, so I'm down to 11.5. So making this 13.5 as probably strong as I can through the loft, but also then through that weight forward. So basically it's more sort of fiery position, as I would maybe call it. Now again, obviously you can do the same with this with that 11.5. So you could turn that down to 9.5 there, couldn't you, as an option. So depending what again where you're going to use this on the golf course. Now very noticeable now, this sits to my eye much squarer. That sits fantastically square when I look at that. So definitely turn that loft down, just helps the alignment of the face. Oh, that's a solid hit. Just peeling a touch right. Looked to be a little bit more of a forward flight on that. Didn't seem to spin as much. Now, that spin was 2.6, but the flight was definitely different there. Probably just got that little bit of spin there, just for that fade, slight fade hit on that. That's a good flight. That's a good flight. Feels stronger, that. We'll have a look at some numbers in a minute, see if it actually is, but that does feel stronger. Yeah, a little bit lower spin, maybe just starting to see a pattern. See a little bit longer, a little bit more, probably a little bit more ball speed with that less loft, and the pattern now just moving a little bit more neutral to the right side slightly. Okay, that's a solid hit. Touch up that left, but a very good solid hit again. A little bit more of a forward flight, that was a little bit more of a lower spin, definitely a little bit more distance there. Okay, so really I think with the Burner Mini Driver, I think you've really got to decide what you're trying to do with this in the golf bag. Is it a driver replacement? If so, I would probably say to you go more towards that 11.5 degree loft. If this is going to be a 3-wood replacement, so maybe try to chase those long par 5s, I think the 13.5 is going to be an easier option. And then of course you've got that adjustability. So I love the fact they've introduced this with change of weight, so you can just fine tune this a little bit more. We've got neck sleeve plus that loft. You can probably dial it in exactly for your requirements. Post comments down below, let me know your thoughts. Burner Mini Driver. Appreciate you watching as always. Catch up with you all very soon.